A masked hero charges a fiery fist as monsters swarm a crumbling fortress. A devastating explosion rips through the ranks, launching enemies into the air. Gritting his teeth, the warrior focuses his entire strength into a single strike. He whirls through the chaos, cutting down beasts with blinding speed and precision. Radiant energy pulses from his palms as he lunges into the next wave. A massive monster takes a direct hit from his overwhelming power. Soldiers atop the castle walls stare in disbelief at their savior's arrival. The hero delivers a crushing blow that shatters the demon's defenses instantly. He dives through the air with unstoppable momentum toward his target. High above the battlefield, he engages a gargantuan dragon in a fierce duel. Exhaustion begins to set in as the warrior catches his breath after combat. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a quiet city bathed in evening light. A small dog scampers across the grass at a rapid pace. The playful white puppy barks excitedly while wandering through the park. A young man naps on a bench with a job listing covering his face. Startled awake by the barking, he sits up and sighs in frustration. Sosuke Sato, an unemployed teen, realizes he was dreaming of his past again. He remembers being transported to a fantasy world years ago during middle school. The memory takes him back to a childhood friend's lavish birthday party. Young Sosuke stands awkwardly among the guests while clutching a wrapped gift. His beautiful childhood friend smiles warmly, delighted that he came to celebrate her special day with her. She opens the small gift box to find a stunning necklace, her eyes sparkling with genuine surprise. Recalling their past, she wonders if it was too expensive, while he insists he earned every single yen. He spent countless hours massaging his grandfather's stiff shoulders just to save enough for her perfect present. She reaches back to fasten the elegant jewelry around her neck. With a radiant smile, she thanks him and admires how much he treasures his family's values. Blushing intensely, he realizes this is the moment to finally share his true feelings. Standing by the garden fountain, he gathers his courage and confesses his love. Tears well up in her eyes as she gently explains she cannot return his affection. His heart shatters instantly as the crushing weight of her rejection finally sinks in. He remembers how she excelled at everything from karate to music, making her a perfect idol. Feeling utterly inferior and humiliated, he turns and sprints away from the party in tears. Despair fuels his legs as he races through the dark city streets alone. He leaps over a high fence, ignoring her desperate cries for him to wait and listen. Reaching the coastline, he impulsively strips off his clothes to plunge into the cold sea. He dives into the crashing waves, letting out a primal scream of frustration. Suddenly, he finds himself kneeling completely naked before a queen and several hooded mystical figures. Stunned and confused, he listens as the royal woman addresses him by name and welcomes him. Sosuke's mind reels as he is desperately begged to save an unknown world while completely naked. Panicking, he sprints away from the mystical figures, shouting in embarrassment about his lack of clothing. Demanding answers about his location, he learns he has been summoned to the kingdom of D. Griffia. The frantic teen flatly refuses to fight any demon king as he continues his desperate flight. He rages against the summoning, questioning why he was chosen instead of some famous action star. The goddess pleads for help, but Sosuke only wants to return to the youth he just lost. A sudden realization hits him, causing his frantic movements to come to a jarring, silent halt. The agonizing memory of his recent heartbreak resurfaces, making his current situation feel even more bleak. He eventually accepts his grim reality and dons the hero's mantle amidst the roaring cheers of citizens. His exhausted, soul-crushed expression is mistaken by the public for the stoic resolve of a legendary warrior. The subsequent war against the Demon King begins, unfolding exactly like the epic tales found in fiction. He embarks on a long journey, experiencing days of grueling effort and forming bonds of true friendship. He strikes with desperate speed against the overwhelming darkness. Alongside his companions, he battles fiercely through the monster hordes. He lands a heavy punch directly into the beast's face. He sends the monster flying with a powerful, concentrated kick. He ignores the monster's insults while focusing his inner strength. His empowered fist crushes through the enemy's defenses with ease. A giant skeletal beast, mocks the hero's appearance during the duel. He unleashes a barrage of fists to defeat every single opponent in his path. Sosuke delivers a crushing punch to a massive dragon's jaw, showing off his immense strength. He stands triumphantly over the fallen beast as the kingdom hails him as their greatest savior. His magical companions urge him forward, promising to handle the rear while he confronts the final evil. The battlefield becomes a blur of violence as he cuts through endless waves of demonic soldiers. After enduring countless sacrifices, he finally strikes down the Demon King and cements his legendary status. Peace returns to D. Griffia, and Sosuke basks in the unprecedented adoration of the grateful populace. His fame reaches ridiculous heights, with his face appearing on everything from history books to children's toys. He relaxes at a tavern, promising the locals he will always be there to protect their world. With unwavering confidence, he declares that his journey as a hero is only just beginning. However, a sudden distortion shatters his reality, signaling a cruel and unexpected end to his triumph. His eyes widen in shock as his consciousness starts to slip away into an empty void. Suddenly, he finds himself standing completely naked in the middle of a familiar modern city park. Confusion takes hold as he looks around, trying to comprehend how he returned to Earth. He questions his memories, struggling to reconcile his life as a hero with his current surroundings. He recalls the moment he was summoned, and wonders if the entire experience was just a dream. His gaze falls upon a local sandbox that he remembers vividly from his early childhood days. A chilling realization hits him as he confirms the location is indeed right near his home. He screams in panic, realizing he has been forcibly returned to Earth without any of his belongings. Despair sets in as he wonders about the fate of the fantasy world he left behind. Whirling around in a state of pure hysteria, he tries to make sense of his impossible situation. A police officer confronts a sweating, naked Sosuke in the park, demanding to know his current occupation. Sosuke awkwardly claims to be a hero, but the skeptical officer only sees a delusional and naked trespasser. The harsh reality of his situation begins to set in as the officer remains entirely unconvinced by him. For a brief moment, he remembers his former glory as the legendary savior of another magical fantasy world. Back in the present, he realizes that he is officially viewed as a highly suspicious person with no history. He cries out that he defeated the Demon King, while the officer tells him to work more seriously. The title card appears as Sosuke faces the consequences of being a junior high dropout in modern Japan. Later, Sosuke sits at a desk eating rice, while an officer asks him what happened in the park. He tries to explain his epic journey to D. Griffia, but everyone assumes he is suffering from painful delusions. The police watch in concern as Sosuke claims to still sense the presence of monsters within the city. Growing intense, he boasts about slaying dragons while the officers urgently decide to call for his legal guardians. Believing he has severe memory loss, the police provide him with clothes while he continues to weep uncontrollably. He suddenly realizes a missing person report was filed years ago, making his return even more complicated and public. His distraught grandparents burst into the room, crying out his name in a state of pure emotional shock. A crowd of relieved neighbors and family members gathers around to celebrate his mysterious and unexpected return home. The officer jokingly assures the worried townspeople that Sosuke is still as energetic as he ever was before. Embracing his sobbing grandmother, Sosuke tries to mention the parallel world, but finds it completely impossible to explain. His grandfather grabs him in a rough embrace, scolding him for causing so much worry over the years. Being dragged home by his family, Sosuke realizes his grand story as a hero has ended quite abruptly. Accepting his fate, he puts on a hoodie and decides he must find a way to live on Earth. His grandparents discuss his future, his grandfather insisting that Sosuke is a tough boy who will definitely be fine. He takes a firm step forward onto the pavement with newfound determination to rebuild his life from scratch. Starting his second life on Earth, Sosuke vows to seize his own happiness, despite the many challenges ahead. He realizes that finding a job is his first priority and stares blankly at a blank resume form. His pen stops abruptly as he reaches the education section, realizing a massive problem in his life history. Since he was summoned at 13, he never actually graduated from middle school or attended high school classes. A cold sweat breaks out as he realizes his highest level of education is technically only elementary school. Moving to a formal setting, an interviewer calls his name to begin a professional job assessment session. Dressed in a suit, Sosuke introduces himself with a booming voice, eager to make a good first impression. The panel of interviewers asks him to describe the specific professional skills he has cultivated over the years. He confidently explains his mastery of enhancement magic, claiming it allows him to physically surpass any normal human. Boasting about his durability, he claims he is tougher than a dragon and will never take sick leave. He mentions his global travels to defeat a demon king, while requesting a role involving outside fieldwork. Clenching his fist, he swears to utilize his combat-hardened skills to benefit the company in any way possible. The interviewers mock him, suggesting he should have outgrown his hero delusions by the second year of middle school. Walking away, he realizes fighting is his only talent, and struggles to think of any real-world specialties. In a moment of absolute desperation, he suggests that he can at least make high-quality mud dumplings. A formal rejection letter arrives shortly after, confirming his failure to secure even a simple entry-level position. Collapsing onto a park bench, he lies face down among a pile of failed job applications and dreams. He curses the companies, complaining that their business jargon sounds just as nonsensical as ancient magic spells. Sosuke rants about the profound depth of mud dumplings, while his grandfather yells at him to be quiet. He drowns in rejection letters, crushed by the weight of being an elementary school graduate. The playground stands silent as dusk falls over the quiet urban landscape. Hollow-eyed and defeated, he stares ahead with a soul broken by modern society. On a swing, he laments that job hunting is harder than slaying high-ranking demons. He recalls his supermarket part-time job, while trying to move past his shut-in lifestyle. Watching paper planes drift, he realizes all his former school friends have moved on. Anxiety and jealousy grip him as he compares his stagnant life to his peers. Consequently, he vows to become a person who never makes his worried family cry again. Sighing, he heads home to fill out yet another exhausting and repetitive job resume. A desperate scream suddenly pierces the air, snapping him out of his gloomy thoughts. Thugs on a loud motorcycle corner a helpless girl. 3 pompadour delinquents surround the terrified woman with clearly malicious and lewd intentions. Although she pleads for them to leave, Sosuke watches from the stairs above. Disgust flashes across his face as he observes the outdated behavior of local thugs. He takes a firm and determined step forward. Confronting the bikers, he calls them endangered species and threatens to involve the police. However, the lead thug erupts, mockingly calling the teenager a tired-looking old man instead. He screams back in a state of pure fury. Already feeling low, he becomes incredibly sensitive about his naturally mature and aged appearance. The delinquent grabs the terrified girl's arm and demands that she comes along with them. Sosuke shouts at them to stop, ordering the thugs to let the poor girl go. Immediately, he realizes her identity, his eyes widening as a wave of total shock hits him. Before him stands Kozumi Shikigami, the childhood friend who rejected his confession long ago. Consequently, memories of his first love and her cold refusal flood back into his mind. She looks up in pure disbelief, whispering his name while the thugs continue their taunting. Simultaneously, they mockingly order him to get on the bike or face their entire gang. The lead thug sneers directly into his face, claiming that the girl belongs to him. In response, Sosuke glares with silent rage as he prepares to defend his former friend. He clenches his fist tightly, channeling the strength he once used to slay ancient dragons. Terrified, Kozumi watches the tense standoff while fearing for her savior's safety in this situation. He prepares a devastating strike that would surely kill a normal human in an instant. The delinquent only laughs and promises a bloodbath if Sosuke doesn't back away right now. Moving with superhuman speed, he readies a finishing blow as his warrior instincts take control. Rage consumes his entire being, while he prepares to cross a line he cannot uncross. Suddenly, Kozumi screams for him to stop, her voice cutting through the heavy tension. He freezes in mid-action, forcing himself to remember the strict rules of modern Japanese society. Realizing he isn't in D. Griffia anymore, he knows he cannot solve every problem with violence. Fearing his actions will worry his family, he makes the difficult choice to stand down. A heavy fist slams into his face as he takes the blow for her sake. The delinquent's heavy punch lands squarely on Sosuke's face, sending him tumbling backward in a pathetic display. Following the strike, he collapses upside down as the thugs mock his utter lack of combat strength. Roaring with laughter, the bikers speed away while declaring the neighborhood belongs to their gang, the Venom Legion. Kazumi immediately rushes to his side in a panic while he curses the gang's embarrassing and ridiculous name. She gently dabs his wounds with a handkerchief, tearfully apologizing for putting him in such a dangerous situation. Eventually, a heavy silence falls between them as they acknowledge how much time has truly passed. It has been over 4 years since Sosuke last saw her, recalling how she avoided him after his return. Though he assumes her absence was due to awkwardness, she begins to speak with soft, heartfelt nostalgia. Kazumi looks at him warmly, asking if he remembers how they spent their childhood playing in this very park. Brief flashbacks show Sosuke constantly falling over while trying his best to keep her entertained and happy. She looks down with guilt, lamenting that she has always been the primary cause of his many injuries. Overcome by emotion, the girl breaks into a series of frantic and heart-wrenching apologies for her past actions. Sosuke simply stares at her in complete shock, stunned by the raw intensity of her sudden emotional outburst. He tries to brush off the injury as minor, but Kazumi confesses that she has lived with regret. She cries out that her harsh words caused him to disappear, blaming herself for his long, mysterious absence. A memory of that fateful birthday night resurfaces, showing her desperate and futile cries for him to wait. Sosuke realizes that his sudden summoning happened immediately after she broke his heart that evening. Deep down, he wonders if she spent years believing her rejection was the reason he vanished from Earth. Reaching out to grab her shoulders, he urgently insists that she is not responsible for his fate. Kazumi looks up through her tears, her voice trembling as she whispers his name in a moment of vulnerability. Sosuke desperately wants to explain his disappearance, but he struggles to find the words to describe his divine summoning. Determined to clear the air, he prepares to finally tell Kazumi the truth about his past 4 years. Following his hesitation, he asks if she will listen to his story, despite how impossible it might sound. Suddenly, a handsome stranger interrupts. Ryoya Shishido appears and possessively places a hand on Kazumi's shoulder, much to Sosuke's surprise and growing annoyance. Stunned silence follows. Introducing himself as Kazumi's classmate, Shishido radiates a sparkling charisma that immediately makes the former hero feel insecure. They shake hands. Meanwhile, Kazumi explains her connection to Shishido through school, highlighting how much her life has progressed without him. Shishido then stares intently at Sosuke, suddenly questioning if he is the legendary childhood friend Kazumi mentioned before. The newcomer laughs and mentions how Kazumi always describes Sosuke as having a very mature and adult-like presence. He mockingly praises Sosuke's aged features, claiming to be jealous of such a dignified and ruggedly handsome appearance. Sosuke fumes silently. Dismissing the tension, Shishido leads Kazumi away, insisting they will be late for their upcoming volunteer club meeting. He waves goodbye. Turning back one last time, Kazumi tearfully promises that they will meet again to finish their important conversation. Sosuke whispers goodbye. Shishido hugs Kazumi. Watching their retreating backs, he realizes the vast emotional distance that now exists between him and his friend. Slumped on a park bench, he mourns his failed romance while assuming the charming stranger is her boyfriend. Sosuke ruminates on Kazumi's breathtaking beauty while feeling the heavy sting of his repeated social failures. Utterly drained and feeling pathetic, he collapses onto a park bench, wallowing in his own deep misery. He suddenly remembers his scheduled part-time shift, forcing himself to set aside his personal despair for work. Under the pale moonlight, he walks through the city while lamenting the harsh necessity of working to survive. Arriving at the market, he puts on a professional front and welcomes the late-night grocery shoppers. He works with superhuman efficiency, scanning items with blinding speed to prove his worth as a retail employee. A difficult customer disrupts his flow, demanding to know the location of eggs with a condescending and rude tone. The woman cruelly mocks his lack of education, triggering his deep-seated insecurities about his missing school years. His cheerful co-worker, Sasamine Miko, suddenly appears behind him to handle the increasingly tense situation with ease. Miko expertly guides the rude customer away with a radiant smile, leaving Sosuke in awe of her professionalism. The store manager gives him a warm pat on the back, encouraging him to keep doing his best. Deeply moved by their unexpected kindness, he feels a rare moment of gratitude in his otherwise bleak reality. After their shift concludes, Miko invites him to walk home together under the quiet and starry night sky. He thanks her for the support, while realizing that his co-worker is actually a very capable high schooler. Miko dismisses his praise with a laugh, insisting that his physical strength is actually a great asset to them. While she stretches and discusses school, Sosuke finds himself distracted by her exceptionally bubbly and physically mature presence. She reveals her dream of becoming a nursery teacher, a goal that perfectly matches her nurturing and kind character. Turning the conversation toward him, she asks what he truly wants to become in the future on Earth. He looks down with a grim expression, admitting that job hunting has completely stripped him of any personal dreams. Reflecting on his mounting list of failures and recent rejections, he wonders if he truly has any future here. Miko suddenly shouts that he definitely has a future, catching Sosuke completely off guard. Miko excitedly admires his muscular physique, leaving the former hero blushing with intense embarrassment. While Miko feels inspired to try harder, Sosuke wonders if he is actually talking to a goddess. As they walk together at night, Miko mentions a chilling rumor currently spreading through the local neighborhood. She whispers mysteriously about a terrifying entity that has been appearing lately in the dark urban shadows. Sosuke suggests it might just be a pervert, but Miko insists there is something far more sinister. Acting out the legend, she claims a vengeful ghost has been haunting the quiet streets after dark. The former legendary hero remains entirely unimpressed, dryly commenting on how scary the situation sounds to him. Annoyed by his sarcasm, she claims many of her friends have actually witnessed the paranormal phenomenon themselves. She describes a shadowy figure making disturbing rustling noises while emerging slowly from the pitch-black darkness. Miko pouts and complains that he clearly doesn't believe her warnings about the dangerous city specter. Internally, he reflects on his past battles with monsters far more terrifying than any common earthly ghost. His sharp warrior instincts suddenly flare up as he scans the dark surroundings for potential threats. They continue walking through the dim alleyways while Sosuke remains vigilant for any signs of actual danger. He pauses to scan the empty street, his senses on high alert despite the quiet urban atmosphere. Miko admits her fear, explaining that her mother usually meets her, but couldn't make it tonight. He listens quietly to her concerns, realizing that the modern world has its own unique set of perils. Sosuke advises her to walk with others, or ask the store manager for a safe escort home. Eventually, he promises to personally walk her to her front door whenever their shifts end at night. Delighted by his chivalry, Miko blushes and happily accepts his offer to protect her during the commute. Sosuke and Miko decide to exchange contact information, though his outdated flip phone surprises his younger coworker. Miko smiles warmly while saving his number, happy to have a way to reach her mysterious new friend. He admits his technological knowledge stopped years ago, prompting her to recommend upgrading to a modern smartphone. Eventually, Miko waves a cheerful goodbye as she safely reaches her home under the bright streetlights. Suddenly, Sosuke's expression hardens as his refined warrior instincts detect a familiar and deeply unsettling presence. He realizes with a shock that a creature overflowing with magical energy is lurking nearby in the city. Perplexed, he wonders how magic could exist here, having sensed these faint traces since his forced return. Determining the threat is close, he abandons his path home and moves toward the source of the aura. He launches forward with explosive speed toward the source of the magic. Racing through the night, he follows the thick scent of mana through the urban landscape. Glaring ahead, he wonders what exactly is happening to Earth as he enters the secret battlefield. Meanwhile, a monstrous silhouette with a single piercing eye manifests within the shadows of the sleeping town. Arriving at the scene, he detects two powerful magical signatures clashing violently in the middle of the road. He reflects on how magic technically exists everywhere, yet such high levels should be impossible on Earth. Standing ready for combat, he prepares to face whatever nightmare has crossed over from the other world. A devastating, magical blast rips through the air, illuminating the dark street with a blinding light. Witnessing the scale of the power, he is reminded of the legendary battles he once fought in D. Griffia. To his amazement, a warrior in fantasy armor is launched backward by the force of a devastating blow. Gritting his teeth, he realizes he cannot simply stand by as the situation spirals into deadly chaos. A heavy metal shield spins through the air as the secret battle for the city truly begins. A white-haired warrior crashes through the urban night, smashing into a street sign with immense force. Injured and bleeding from his face, the mysterious fighter struggles to regain his composure while perched high up. Watching the chaotic scene from below, Sosuke stands frozen in absolute shock at the impossible sight. The wounded combatant notices him, wondering how an ordinary civilian managed to enter his magical barrier. Perched atop a pole, the stranger frantically orders Sosuke to flee before the situation turns even more deadly. Eerie laughter echoes from the pitch-black shadows as a hidden predator prepares to make its move. Suddenly, a massive clawed limb smashes a nearby car, signaling the arrival of a terrifying presence. A monstrous tiger-like creature, with glowing eyes and supernatural markings, emerges into the middle of the street. The beast snarls with bloodlust, mocking its prey and promising that there is nowhere left to hide. Sosuke recoils in horror, instantly recognizing the creature as a demonic monster from his past life. The hungry predator notices Sosuke, deciding to feast on both humans simultaneously with a sadistic laugh. Exhaustion takes its toll as the white-haired warrior collapses to his knees, while Sosuke shouts for him to wait. Despite his heavy injuries, the fighter stands tall and vows to protect the civilian at any cost. With a burst of resolve, the mysterious youth channels his remaining energy into a powerful sorcery spell. Sosuke watches with intense eyes, his mind reeling from the realization that magic has returned to his life. Flames swirl around the white-haired sorcerer as he prepares to unleash a devastating magical counterattack. The battle intensifies as the sorcerer engages the beast in a high-stakes duel amidst the urban ruin. Cackling with dark delight, the monster lunges forward, while Sosuke confirms the true nature of this clashing power. Watching the magician and beast collide, Sosuke realizes that supernatural entities are now active in the modern world. He barely dodges a lethal claw, shocked to find his old enemies roaming the very streets of Earth. The tiger monster lunges with blinding speed, forcing the white-haired sorcerer into a desperate defensive stance. A brutal strike connects, sending the warrior flying backward as blood sprays from his injured mouth. Looming over his prey, the beast mockingly laughs at the inherent weakness of all human beings. Sosuke watches the grim scene, deciding his questions must wait while someone's life is in danger. He suddenly dashes forward, catching the falling warrior just before the predator can deliver a blow. Standing firm, Sosuke tells the bewildered youth that he has done enough and should stay back. The injured magician watches in stunned silence as Sosuke walks calmly toward the massive snarling monster. Facing the demon, Sosuke demands to know if it is the ghost scaring the local townspeople. He dismisses the monster's arrogance, identifying himself as a protective resident who won't tolerate this nonsense. With a cold gaze, the former hero declares that the creature must die for terrifying his friends. Enraged by his insolence, the demonic tiger snarls and promises to shred the human into mincemeat. The beast launches a ferocious charge, its glowing eyes fixed on Sosuke with absolute lethal intent. Our hero stands his ground as a massive shockwave ripples through the air upon their collision. The white-haired sorcerer struggles to comprehend the sheer power displayed by this seemingly ordinary civilian. The predator leaps from above, aiming to crush the human beneath its supernatural weight and power. Facing the beast head-on, Sosuke stares it down with a level of intensity that shocks the monster. A devastating counterstrike connects, launching the massive creature backward as the white-haired youth looks on. Primal fury fills the monster's glowing eyes, while it realizes this human possesses a truly terrifying strength. Skidding violently across the asphalt, the creature growls in pain and struggles to regain its balance. Under the moonlight, Sosuke and the demonic tiger prepare for the final climax of their secret struggle. Clenching his fist, Sosuke prepares to demonstrate the true power of a former interdimensional hero. He delivers a bone-shattering uppercut that sends the massive demonic tiger roaring into the dark night sky. The beast soars high above the rooftops while the injured warrior watches the display in complete disbelief. Landing roughly, the monster growls in a state of shock, unable to understand how a human is strong. The predator lunges again, desperate to reclaim its pride against this seemingly ordinary and unarmed city dweller. Sosuke remains perfectly calm, his intense gaze fixed on the creature as he coolly orders it to stay down. Ignoring the wounded sorcerer's warnings, he steps into the line of fire to face the nightmare head-on. Facing the beast, he demands to know if its presence is why the local townspeople are so terrified. The former hero points to himself, identifying as a simple resident who won't allow demons in his neighborhood. With a chilling resolve, he tells the monster that it is time for its reign of terror to end. Enraged by such arrogance, the beast charges forward with everything it has, claws ready to shred him apart. They collide in a blur of motion, the speed of their movements creating a lethal dance of urban destruction. A blinding flash of energy erupts from the impact, illuminating the dark alleyways with celestial white light. The stunned sorcerer shields his eyes, unable to perceive anything through the overwhelming intensity of the warrior's power. Emerging from the glare, the tiger pounces from above with a final, desperate attempt to crush the human. Sosuke moves with divine precision, dodging the strike effortlessly while readying his own crushing and decisive counteroffensive. He unleashes a barrage of strikes, the force of each blow shattering the monster's supernatural defenses instantly. Launched backward once more, the predator howls in agonizing pain while the white-haired warrior gasps in surprise. Sosuke quietly acknowledges his successful use of a long-dormant enhancement formula, proving his skills are still sharp. Flashing a confident thumbs up, he claims to just be a courageous young man looking out for his community. Sato reacts in absolute shock as the white-haired warrior suddenly screams in a state of high emotional intensity. To his utter bewilderment, the fighter drops into a deep bow, loudly praising the hero's immense courage. Desperately seeking a mentor, the youth begs the former savior to take him on as a personal disciple. Sosuke stands frozen in complete silence, unable to process the bizarre and formal request he just received. The sun eventually begins to rise over the quiet Sato residence as the chaotic night finally reaches its end. Lying on the floor, Sosuke groans as intense muscle pain from using enhancement magic again racks his body. He ruminates on the sudden discovery of magic on Earth, suspecting his second life is getting very complicated. A sudden and persistent ringing of the doorbell interrupts his recovery, echoing throughout the traditional Japanese house. Feeling incredibly irritable and sore, he slowly drags himself to the entrance to deal with the morning visitor. The white-haired warrior from the previous night bows again, formally introducing himself as the sorcerer Koji Takatsuki. Koji expresses his deepest gratitude for the intervention during the dangerous supernatural confrontation that occurred in the park. Wanting nothing to do with more trouble, Sosuke immediately tries to slide the heavy entrance door shut. Koji frantically blocks the path, begging Sosuke to listen, while the former hero wonders how he was found. The persistent visitor pleads for help with an urgent mission, hoping to recruit a truly master-class mage. Crossing his arms, Sosuke listens with deep skepticism to the wild talk of secret missions and high-level sorcery. Koji explains that with reinforcements from Alteria being unavailable, Sosuke's legendary power is now their only remaining hope. Totally lost, the unemployed hero can only stare back with a look of pure and absolute confusion. He candidly admits that he has no idea what the youth is talking about or what Alteria is. A mysterious woman suddenly interjects from behind, questioning how a powerful mage could be ignorant of their organization. A striking and composed woman with long hair approaches, her presence radiating an air of extreme authority. Koji is startled by the unexpected arrival of his stern instructor, the authoritative Tsuchimura sensei. She demands a private discussion, requesting entry to the house to reveal highly confidential information. Sosuke feels quite lucky his grandparents are out, avoiding the need for any difficult explanations. They gather around a low table to discuss the complex network of hidden magical organizations. The woman formally introduces herself as Kanai Tsuchimura, a high-ranking teacher from the magic school. Koji bows deeply while identifying himself as a dedicated student, currently in his third year. The former hero is dumbfounded to learn that a structured magic society exists in his world. Kanai reveals that besides Koji, 4 other elite students have been deployed for field training. She describes a specialized squad of 5 sorcerers, led by a renowned holy sword wielder. Sosuke listens with a blank expression, trying to comprehend the existence of these secret magical institutions. Their objective is the total extermination of all demonic entities currently manifesting within the city. Bowing his head, Koji admits the monsters are far more powerful than anyone originally anticipated. He expresses deep fear that innocent civilians will be targeted if the threats aren't stopped. Sosuke listens intently while maintaining a stoic front, processing the gravity of their desperate situation. They explain that backup from headquarters is unavailable, leaving the local team without any support. Koji desperately begs Sosuke to lend them his overwhelming and legendary strength for the mission. Sosuke asks for a status report on the remaining threats, wanting to know the exact count. Kanai confirms 14 monsters remain, including one particularly large and formidable entity hiding nearby. He acknowledges the details with a simple sigh while staring thoughtfully into his teacup. Ultimately, he agrees to assist them, prompting an immediate and joyful outburst from the young warrior. Tsuchimura-sensei expresses her disapproval despite the explanation. Catching Koji by surprise with her sudden opposition, she notes that the man before them appears completely ignorant of the internal affairs of sorcerers. The instructor claims that those who didn't attend magic school are merely half-baked amateurs with simple qualifications. Since he is an unregistered mage, she clarifies that Altaria cannot offer him any official monetary rewards. She firmly believes that risking one's life for free is a foolish choice for any responsible adult. Sosuke argues that his decision isn't based on profit, asserting his awareness of the dangers involved. The woman reacts with a slight twitch of intrigue, clearly noticing the intense resolve in his eyes. He admits to his irregular status, while acknowledging he never formally studied the world's established magic system. Clenching his hand into a tight, determined fist, he dismisses the importance of their bureaucratic rules. Thinking of his family and friends, he declares his ability to fight and protect them from harm. Kanai smirks with a look of genuine impression, acknowledging the massive amount of confidence he radiates. Koji stares at him in absolute awe, deeply inspired by the veteran warrior's noble and selfless determination. Taking a sip of her drink, the teacher admits they currently have no other viable options. They reach a final agreement as she formally requests his vital cooperation for the upcoming dangerous mission. As the visitors depart, she announces that Koji will return to escort him to the battlefield soon. Standing alone, Sosuke reflects on how he previously felt his hero powers were useless in modern society. He realizes that his combat skills can actually safeguard the people he cares about on Earth. With a fierce and renewed gaze, he fully commits himself to becoming a savior once again. Night hangs heavy over the city buildings, while the quiet urban landscape hides an impending supernatural storm. He takes a resolute step onto the rough pavement, finally ready to face his new destiny. Sato walks through the streets while telling someone over the phone that he will be home late. Suddenly, Tsuchimura appears out of nowhere, startling Sato while he is still engaged in his conversation. After Tsuchimura kneels to apologize for the delay, Sato puts his phone away with a dismissive comment. Pointing toward a nearby park illuminated by lampposts, the young man indicates where they must go next. As they walk toward the stone stairs, Tsuchimura asks if Sato has reached a decision regarding his proposal. With stars in his eyes, he pleads for Sato to take him on as a devoted disciple. Sato immediately rejects the request by citing his own busy schedule and upcoming job hunting responsibilities. Stunned by the rejection, Tsuchimura questions if his youthful age is the reason for the refusal. Sato retorts that they are the same age, prompting Tsuchimura to bow deeply in genuine shock. Admitting he mistook Sato for a 25-year-old, Tsuchimura begins walking toward their meeting spot. Irritated by the comment about his appearance, Sato follows as a loud voice suddenly rings out. A group of students from the Magic Academy confronts Tsuchimura for his lack of punctuality tonight. Among the gathered individuals stands Takatsuki, a woman exhaling cigarette smoke with an air of complete confidence. She looks toward the newcomer and questions whether this helper is truly the powerful maid she expected. Moving with authority, the woman continues to lead the way, while maintaining her dominant and refined presence. Takatsuki impatiently demands a proper introduction, so she can judge if the helper's strength is actually legitimate. Sato realizes these must be the elite students from the magic school assigned to the Arteria mission. 3 of the students pose dramatically, showcasing their status as the prestigious Holy Sword users of Kanto. Accompanied by 2 striking female companions, the group of 5 stands ready for their upcoming objective. Observing the entire team, Sato can't help but notice how incredibly attractive every single member is. Continuing his observations, Sato thinks the group looks attractive enough to be a successful idol band. His attention specifically shifts to the mysterious, long-haired girl standing just behind Tsuchimura. When the young woman begins to turn around, a glimpse of her ribboned hair catches his eye. Her face is finally revealed, causing Sato to freeze in absolute disbelief at the familiar sight. Utterly shocked, Sato internally shouts her name as he realizes this girl is definitely Kazumi. He continues to stare in a daze, wondering how on earth she could possibly be here right now. Tsuchimura quickly approaches the stunned Sato to introduce him to the rest of the waiting party. Meanwhile, the girl looks back with a confused expression, seemingly unaware of Sato's intense inner turmoil. Taking charge, Tsuchimura informs Takatsuki that he is bringing the helper to meet the entire team. Sensing Sato's hesitation, the young man waves him forward while questioning his sudden and strange behavior. Sato points a trembling finger toward the girl, desperately asking if she is indeed the person he knows. Tsuchimura confirms her identity while mentioning their club activities and the group's rather flashy reputation. He further explains that they hide the existence of magic from the public by using school clubs as cover. This revelation strikes Sato like a physical blow as he processes that Kazumi attends a magic academy. It turns out she is a renowned prodigy, specializing in medical magic, known as the Healing Shrine Maiden. Additionally, she is a powerful summoner who has already formed contracts with several high-ranking divine beasts. Hearing these extravagant titles, Sato breaks into a cold sweat over the absurdity of the entire situation. Crouching down in distress, he reveals to a shocked Tsuchimura that Kazumi is actually his childhood friend. He contemplates how they both managed to keep their magical abilities a complete secret from one another. Recalling her strict family environment, Sato considers that she might have been forced to hide her true self. Sato watches from a distance as Kazumi walks away with the group of elite Magic Academy students. Kazumi herself seems deep in thought, unaware that her childhood friend is observing her every single move. Determined to remain anonymous, Sato expresses to Tsuchimura the critical need to hide his face from her. Tsuchimura agrees immediately, realizing that a chance encounter right now would lead to unwanted and complicated consequences. He quickly searches for a solution, contemplating the use of transformation magic to hide Sato's recognizable features. Without warning, a comical traditional mask appears, serving as a bizarre but effective tool for his immediate concealment. Tsuchimura explains that this simple headgear will serve as an effective disguise for their secret night mission. While Sato questions where the mask came from, the boy assures him it will keep his identity hidden. To further protect the secret, Tsuchimura decides to address Sato only as sensei from this point forward. Resigning himself to the absurd look, Sato prioritizes the city's safety over his own personal sense of dignity. He releases a powerful aura, preparing to fight the monsters while maintaining his goofy yet necessary undercover persona. Growing impatient, the fiery Mitsuki yells for the 2 newcomers to stop their whispering and come forward. Sato and Tsuchimura finally emerge from the darkness, posing with their arms crossed to appear somewhat authoritative. The gathered elite students are instantly dumbfounded, staring in total disbelief at the man wearing a silly mask. An awkward and heavy silence descends upon the group as they process the absurdity of their new ally. Mitsuki quickly loses her temper, shouting that their behavior is a disrespectful insult to their serious magical mission. She confronts the masked Sato directly, blushing with pure rage while demanding to know if he is joking. Nervously, Tsuchimura attempts to defuse the situation by claiming the helper has complicated personal circumstances for his attire. Seeing the tension rise, Ryoya steps in and places a calming hand on Mitsuki's head to stop her. He offers a warm smile, reminding his comrade that judging people by their physical appearance is never right. Mitsuki looks surprised and considers Ryoya's words, her face blushing slightly while she processes the situation. Ryoya continues patting Mitsuki's head as the group discusses whether this masked helper is truly a skilled mage. Tia Vermilion looks on with suspicion, while Mitsuki mentions that Professor Tsuchimura has already granted official permission. Mitsuki, still quite flustered, demands to know the masked man's name, hoping for something that sounds more professional. Sato boldly introduces himself as Cabbage Taro, extending a hand while Mitsuki reacts with total disbelief at him. To further the absurdity, Sato mentions his favorite food is chikuzeni, which only serves to irritate Mitsuki even more. Ryoya finds the exchange quite amusing, while Mitsuki snaps back at him for laughing at the ridiculous situation. Takatsuki finally intervenes, telling Mitsuki to drop her aggressive attitude so they can focus on their objective. Takatsuki questions Sato about his odd summer festival attire, leading him to offer a vague and nervous explanation. Kazumi stares intensely at the masked man, skeptically wondering if he will actually be useful for the mission. Sato feels Kazumi's sharp gaze boring into him like a drill, fearing that his true identity might be discovered. Mitsuki loudly protests against working with such a strange person, but Tsuchimura firmly vouches for his exceptional power. Takatsuki declares the collaboration a settled matter and instructs everyone to proceed with their individual and formal introductions. Mitsuki introduces herself as Mitsuki Uto, threatening to expel him if he attempts any more strange or suspicious behavior. Ryoya Shishido formally introduces himself with a friendly smile, welcoming the mysterious newcomer to their elite group. Tia Vermilion and Kozumi Shikigami state their names while Kozumi continues to observe the masked man very closely. Kozumi suddenly asks if they have ever met, prompting Sato to reply in a high-pitched and disguised voice. She leans in further to ask about his reputation as a great mage, making him feel incredibly cornered. Tsuchimura hurriedly interrupts the questioning to ask for an immediate briefing on their tactical plan for the night. Takatsuki takes a puff from her cigarette and prepares to briefly explain how the team will split up. Takatsuki officially divides the group, assigning Tsuchimura, Mitsuki, Tia, and Sato to patrol the mountainside. Simultaneously, she declares that she, Ryoya, and Kazumi will take responsibility for searching the outskirts. The leader emphasizes that everyone must locate and eliminate demons on site while reporting any emergencies immediately. Ryoya urges a lingering Kazumi to follow him quickly as their part of the mission begins. Elsewhere, Tsuchimura leads the way for Sato, continuing to address him as sensei, despite the strange mask. Kazumi moves through the night with a focused gaze, sensing something unusual in the air around them. Mitsuki lets out a long, frustrated sigh while attempting to keep up with the fast-paced group. She complains about being separated from Ryoya, though Tia reminds her they are currently on a serious mission. The team of four sprints through the forest, while engaging in a lively, slightly argumentative conversation. Sato tells Mitsuki not to be so angry, using an overly familiar nickname that only provokes her further. Meanwhile, Kazumi stops abruptly as she detects a powerful presence lurking nearby in the shadows. With impressive agility, she leaps onto a thick tree branch to gain a better vantage point. Suddenly, she dives forward from the heights, her body moving like a blur through the dark forest. She unleashes a swift, devastating attack that cuts through the surrounding trees with incredible precision. Emerging from the strike, she notes that the enemy has finally revealed itself to their scouting group. A colossal, mantis-like demon towers over the students, its sharp blades glinting dangerously in the moonlight. The massive creature looms over the young mages, threatening to overwhelm them with its sheer physical size. Ryoya stares back at the beast with intense resolve, his eyes sharpening as he prepares for combat. Mitsuki joins the front line, her expression hardening as she readies her own magical abilities for battle. As the confrontation begins, Kazumi channels her energy while Sato watches the monstrous threat with growing concern. The mission officially begins as the scene transitions into a flash of light marked by heavy text. In a sudden flashback, a young Kazumi looks up with sorrowful eyes and asks why her life is different. Surrounded by various mythical summons, the lonely child wonders why she cannot live like any ordinary kid. An adult's hand pats her head while explaining that the prestigious Shikigami family consists of elite mages. Because she is the eldest daughter, she is told she must carry the weight of a responsible existence. Day after day, she is confined to a large room to repeat grueling magic training within a circle. Feeling suffocated, she watches other children playing from afar, while knowing her family would never allow her join. A strict woman reminds her to avoid common children to prevent her magical secrets from being discovered. Overwhelmed by the isolation and pressure of her lineage, the small girl eventually breaks down in tears. She finally runs away into the night, sobbing to herself about how much she hates everyone's high expectations. While sprinting through a playground, she continues to cry out against her father, mother, and even her grandfather. She desperately wishes for a chance to play with friends, just like a normal girl instead of a mage. Suddenly, she notices a young boy crouching in the dirt and diligently working on something with great concentration. Approaching quietly, she watches him carefully pour fine sand over a perfectly spherical object with a serious face. The curious girl tentatively reaches out a single finger to poke the boy's shoulder and get his attention. Startled by the sudden contact, the boy leaps up with a loud yell that frightens both of them equally. She quickly bows her head in apology and introduces herself to the boy as Kazumi Shikigami. When she asks about his task, he holds out a dark sphere and explains it is a mud dumpling. He reveals the finished product to her, showing a polished ball that glints brilliantly under the park lights. Seeing the shining creation, Kazumi is captivated by its beauty, while the boy watches her reaction with mild embarrassment. Kazumi stares in shock at the mud dumpling, realizing it's far more complex than she ever imagined. She begins kneading her own pile of dirt with intense focus and messy hands. Her creation suddenly crumbles into pieces, leaving her completely devastated by the unexpected failure. Despondent, she stares at the muddy remains while the boy silently observes her grief. Seeing her tears, he gently asks if she would like to try building one together. He suggests there's no rush today and promises to be there at the same time tomorrow. Overwhelmed by his unexpected invitation, the young girl gazes at him with sparkling, wide-eyed wonder. She vigorously promises to return, her heart racing with the joy of finding a true friend. The boy recoils slightly, surprised by the sheer intensity of her sudden and passionate motivation. Unexpectedly, she bursts into a fit of loud, hysterical sobbing that catches him completely off guard. Local passers-by cast suspicious glares at the boy while he desperately tries to quiet her down. Through her tears, she confesses a deep hatred for mean lies and broken promises. He quickly apologizes, vowing to never deceive her as he covers his blushing face. Sniffling, she follows him while the swing set stands silent in the background of their meeting. She tentatively asks for his name, realizing she hasn't even introduced herself properly yet. Back in the present, Sosuke reveals his identity as Kazumi's memories and current reality collide violently. Ryoya stands beside her under the moonlight, sensing the heavy weight of her distracted thoughts. A menacing shadow with glowing eyes manifests near a street lamp, signaling an imminent demonic threat. A savage beast lunges from the darkness, forcing the mages into an immediate and desperate defensive position. Ryoya heroically steps forward to intercept the monster, shielding the startled Kazumi from the brutal impact. Kunai admires Ryoya's speed, noting his mastery of lightning magic while wielding her crystal spear. Ryoya claims low-level demons are target practice, not worth unsheathing his holy sword for. Amidst the tension, Kazumi's gaze drifts, her eyes reflecting silent melancholy from her past. Tsuchimura-sensei warns the pair to stay alert, suspecting high-ranking demons lurk in the shadows. Noticing her distraction, Ryoya promises to protect Kazumi, surprised she's daydreaming during a mission. She whispers an apology to her friend, heart heavy with the mystery of his disappearance. Determined to uncover the truth, Kazumi vows to eventually face her misunderstood past. Under a street lamp, the need for a long overdue conversation hangs heavy in the air. Suddenly, battle erupts as the squad coordinates a fierce assault against the towering mantis demon. Mitsuki unleashes fire, shouting for Tia to prepare as the beast shifts its target. Responding instantly, Tia Vermilion readies her mystical talismans to bind the thrashing monster. Magical cards swirl through the night sky, creating a complex web to ensnare the beast. The talismans collide in a violent explosion, completely immobilizing the supernatural predator. Mitsuki lunges forward with her rapiers, shouting a final command for her devastating finishing strike. Moving like a blur, she cuts through the monster, dealing a decisive, shattering blow. Adrenaline surges as she stares down the remains of the beast with cold, unwavering eyes. Regrouping, she casually dismisses the threat as mediocre, while the battlefield falls silent. Watching from the sidelines, the masked Sosuke stands frozen in comical disbelief. Mitsuki dismisses him, dryly stating the fight is over, while Sosuke remains utterly confused. Sosuke grumbles about his lack of action, while Tsuchimura questions his exclusion from the battle. Mitsuki erupts in fury, repeatedly shouting no at Sosuke, while he stands back in a state of nervous shock. Following this, an intense argument breaks out between Mitsuki and Ryoya regarding the suspicious timing of the man's arrival. Continuing her verbal assault, Mitsuki points a finger at the startled helper while blaming him for the team's frustrations. Just then, Tia calmly intervenes to settle the group, but Mitsuki remains adamant that they need no outside assistance. Boasting of their recent victory, Mitsuki reminds them that they easily handled a demon that typically requires 10 mages. However, Tia suggests that future encounters with high-ranking demons will eventually require additional support and cooperation. Relenting with an annoyed sigh, Mitsuki orders Cabbage to stay back and provide long-range support during their next battle. Looking completely overwhelmed behind his ridiculous mask, Sosuke admits that providing support from the rear is actually impossible. Specifically, he reveals a surprising weakness, explaining that while he excels at body reinforcement, he cannot project magical energy. Consequently, the elite students stare in absolute stunned silence as the supposed master mage admits he lacks basic skills. Enraged, Mitsuki berates Sosuke for not mastering the most fundamental skill taught at any basic magic academy. Sosuke winces at the harsh criticism, realizing that modern mages look down on his unique abilities, just like before. Laughing mockingly, Mitsuki continues to belittle Sosuke's skills, while questioning why their leader even bothered to recruit him. Suddenly, a dark and menacing aura flares around Ryoya as he sternly commands Mitsuki to stop insulting their guest. Turning the tension toward his teammate, Ryoya challenges Mitsuki to settle once and for all whose elemental power reigns. Mitsuki reacts with genuine shock, unable to believe that Ryoya is actually willing to start a duel right now. Both warriors prepare to clash as a panicked Sosuke desperately pleads for everyone to stop. Quickly stepping between them to maintain order, Tia signals for silence while Sosuke tries to prevent a meltdown. Without warning, Tia manifests a massive crystalline barrier, instantly trapping the screaming Mitsuki inside. Trapped within the gem-like prison, Mitsuki demands release, while Tia ignores her to gently heal a scratch on Sosuke. Fragments fall as the barrier shatters, freeing Mitsuki, who remains visibly annoyed despite being out of the prison. Suddenly, Tia's keen senses detect another powerful demonic presence, lingering in the woods to the northwest. Perched high on a branch under the moon, a menacing entity with glowing eyes watches the mages closely. After confirming the target, the group prepares to set off together to handle the next monster. Observing their bickering, Sosuke finds their combat skills impressive, but their teamwork lacks the maturity of veterans. He asks if he should just throw rocks from afar, prompting Mitsuki to walk away in silence. Stopping suddenly, Mitsuki turns back to address the masked man with a final ominous statement. She stares him down with a murderous glare, threatening to kill him if he gets in her way. Sosuke is left paralyzed with shock, completely rattled by the intense bloodlust emanating from the young girl. High above, the shadowy beast lets out a chilling cackle as crows scatter into the dark night sky. The secret war for the city's survival continues as the heroes head toward their next supernatural encounter. Strategic data reveal the varying power levels of the team members as they navigate the urban battlefield. While the magic students are officially ranked, Sosuke's true power remains an unknown variable to the organization. Mitsuki sharpens her resolve, her eyes reflecting the fierce determination of a warrior ready for her next fight. Reaching the designated area, the group moves forward, while Ryoya asks Tia to pinpoint the demon's location. Eager for battle, Mitsuki suddenly dashes ahead with a spin, ignoring the warnings about the danger of isolation. Seeing the group accelerate, Sosuke realizes he must keep up with these hot-blooded students to stay in formation. While they run, he notices Tia watching him with a strangely intense and lingering look of deep contemplation. Sosuke questions her about her persistent staring, but she remains quiet as she struggles to find the words. Finally, she addresses Sosuke directly, expressing a sincere desire to apologize to him for her earlier behavior. Tia bows deeply, apologizing for Mitsuki's rude behavior, while Sosuke looks on with mild confusion, wondering why she is taking responsibility. Sosuke questions her motives for this unexpected and formal apology. Tia explains that the current mission involves demons far too powerful for mere magic school students. Reflecting on her words, Sosuke recalls that Takatsuki shared a similar sentiment about the situation's gravity. Consequently, she reveals their request for backup was rejected by the higher-ups at Alteria headquarters. She describes the dire lack of manpower and the danger to residents when he suddenly appeared. Honestly, Tia admits she initially suspected Sosuke was a spy sent to sabotage their group's reputation. In the cutthroat world of sorcery, some mages actually desire failure to boost their own relative rankings. Sosuke finally understands why Mitsuki was so hostile toward his suspiciously perfect and timely intervention. Despite her aggression, he realizes Mitsuki acts strictly only to ensure the safety of her fellow mages. While the young girl leaps through the dark forest, her bravado hides a very deep-seated fear. Tia notes that Mitsuki's anxiety has made her behavior far more suspicious and aggressive than usual. Pausing their walk, Sosuke asks for a clearer explanation of the complex dynamics within their group. Tia hesitates, her hands trembling slightly as she prepares to share a more personal and vulnerable truth. She urgently pleads with Sosuke not to blame Mitsuki, as her cruel words aren't her true feelings. Hidden behind his silly mask, Sosuke is deeply moved by Tia's genuine kindness and protective nature. He agrees to follow her lead regarding Mitsuki, prompting a look of pure relief from the young woman. To further ease her mind, he clarifies that he was never actually angry about the girl's outbursts. Tia exhales a long breath of relief, thanking him softly as the heavy tension between them dissipates. Finally, Sosuke asks if she still harbors any doubts about him, but she confirms her trust is absolute. Tia notes that Koji has never shown such immense admiration for another person before meeting him. Adjusting his mask, Sosuke listens as she admits he truly doesn't seem like a bad person. With a gentle and radiant smile, Tia confesses that she has grown quite fond of him too. A moment of silence follows as Sosuke processes her unexpected words with a sharp and focused gaze. Blushing behind his ridiculous mask, he awkwardly wonders if he is actually capable of being a hero. They eventually decide to resume their journey, heading deeper into the forest to find the others. Suddenly, a violent distortion rips through the air, signaling a brutal and unseen ambush from the shadows. A sharp impact echoes through the trees as a sudden force strikes with lethal speed and precision. Koji is launched backward with crushing force, slamming into a tree while his companions watch in horror. Collapsing to the blood-stained earth, the young warrior struggles to remain conscious after the devastating blow. Tia screams his name in pure terror as she witnesses the extent of his horrific injuries. Rushing to his side, she frantically asks what happened, while he whispers about a massive demonic entity. Sosuke stands frozen, unable to believe that an enemy could approach so silently and strike so fast. The young magician's body is covered in deep, bleeding gashes, while he gasps for air in agony. Desperate for answers, Tia asks about Mitsuki's whereabouts as the situation continues to spiral out of control. Wide-eyed with shock, she listens as Koji reveals that Mitsuki was snatched away by the monster. Coughing up blood, Koji bitterly apologizes for his own weakness and failure to protect his teammate. Tia begs Sosuke to go after Mitsuki while she stays behind to treat Koji's life-threatening wounds. Sosuke pauses, asking to examine the injuries first, while suggesting he might have a way to help. Kneeling beside his fallen comrade, Sosuke tells Tia to stop apologizing as he prepares to take action. Coughing up blood, Koji stares at his attacker with a look of pure, agonizing defeat. He is violently launched through the air, while Sosuke sprints toward the epicenter of the chaotic battle. Gritting his teeth, Sosuke realizes his initial strike failed to decisively neutralize the hidden and resilient threat. Standing protectively before Tia, Sosuke warns her to retreat as the fallen enemy begins to stir again. Eerie bubbling sounds erupt from the shadows as a dark, viscous substance starts to rapidly take shape. A terrifying black sludge monster manifests, towering over the mages as they watch in absolute and breathless horror. Tia's eyes widen in disbelief while she stares at the grotesque creature reflected in her trembling pupils. Sosuke identifies the beast as a master of sophisticated mimicry, noting its disguise was almost perfectly convincing. The monster crouches low, mockingly questioning the fate of their missing comrades, while radiating a sinister aura. The monster reveals that its arrival was part of a calculated plan rather than a mere coincidence. Tia remains paralyzed by the fact that the enemy perfectly imitated their comrade to infiltrate their group. Sosuke demands the creature prove its intelligence by speaking, keeping his focus sharp through the absurd mask. Cackling with malice, the demon mocks the humans for their arrogance and their joy in uncovering its secrets. It unleashes a massive, crushing blow, while suggesting that a quick death would have been far more merciful. To their shock, the creature begins utilizing actual sorcery, a feat considered nearly impossible for common demons. Tia recalls her teacher's warnings about rare magic-using monsters, while Sosuke recognizes this from his past life. Avoiding a devastating magical projectile, Sosuke mockingly calls the attack too slow as he maneuvers through battle. Suddenly, he stops in surprise as he feels his legs becoming strangely heavy and difficult to lift. Sosuke realizes he has been ensnared by a hidden technique, wondering when the demon managed to cast it. Forced into a defensive position, he grunts as he blocks a heavy, soul-crushing strike from the beast. A massive impact pulverizes the ground, while Sosuke's sandals are visible amidst the flying debris and dust. A secondary explosion rips through the forest as Sosuke stands his ground against the monster's relentless magical assault. The demon launches a heavy stone pillar through the air, heading straight for the heart of the battlefield. Standing firmly before his wounded comrades, Sosuke prepares for the next wave, while Tia stares in absolute terror. Tia sits paralyzed on the ground, gazing at the massive trail of destruction left by the enemy's attack. Looking over her shoulder with wide eyes, the young woman whispers Sosuke's fake name in a state of shock. A sharp gaze reflects the scattering crystalline shards as the hidden power of a hero begins to awaken. Tia is blown backward, while Sosuke takes a direct hit to protect his allies from the demon's fury. Another massive stone projectile hurtles through the trees, shattering the peaceful silence of the forest with its momentum. A thunderous crash echoes as the terrain is destroyed, leaving the mages trapped in a nightmare of darkness. The demon looms over a fallen Tia, mockingly declaring that the masked man must surely be dead by now. Tia realizes with horror that the monster is using advanced earth magic beyond anything she previously imagined possible. Showing its truly hideous face, the creature asks if she intends to follow her comrade into the afterlife. Overwhelmed by the loss and her own weakness, Tia hangs her head as tears fall into the dirt. Suddenly, she finds her resolve and stands tall, declaring that she is the only one who can stop it. The demonic beast roars and lunges forward with lethal intent, its glowing eyes fixed on the remaining mage. Tia manifests a powerful crystalline barrier, just in time to block the monster's heavy, bone-crushing physical strike. She grunts in agony, while struggling to maintain her defense against the overwhelming pressure of the demon's strength. The creature smashes against the shield, laughing as cracks begin to spread across the supposedly indestructible magical wall. A brilliant flash of energy erupts as the barrier shatters under the weight of the monster's final devastating blow. Tia unleashes a legendary sealing art, desperately praying for the powerful spell to finally connect. The demonic beast is momentarily ensnared, struggling violently against the shimmering chains of her high-level magic. However, the monster's sheer physical mass begins to strain the structural integrity of the complex magical binding. Shock washes over Tia's face as she realizes her best technique is failing to hold the creature. With a roar, the demon shatters the seal, lunging forward to crush the exhausted young sorceress beneath it. Tia recoils in horror, her outstretched hand unable to stop the impending and brutal counterattack. Mocking her efforts, the demon claims her magical output is simply too weak to contain its true power. The force of the monster's release sends Tia tumbling backward across the rough and uneven forest floor. Looming over his prey, the demonic entity enjoys the sight of the helpless girl's desperate struggle. Trapped in a corner, Tia grits her teeth while reflecting on her perceived failures as a mage. She remembers the incredible talents of her fellow students, feeling like a shadow compared to their brilliance. Internalizing her lack of offensive and restorative skills, she sinks deeper into a pit of self-doubt and despair. Tears of frustration well up as she laments that even her specialized binding magic was completely useless. Despite the fear, she forces herself to stand, knowing she is the only defense left for her friends. Resolve burns in her eyes as she prepares a final stand against the encroaching and terrifying darkness. The demon cackles with sadistic glee, promising to end her life without showing any mercy or restraint. Suddenly, a blur of motion streaks through the air, heading straight for the monster's exposed and hideous head. Tia gasps in surprise as a familiar figure intervenes, utilizing a level of body enhancement magic that's legendary. A heavy punch connects with the beast's face, the impact sending a massive shockwave throughout the dark woods. Stunned by the sudden rescue, Tia watches as her mysterious protector stands firm against the demonic threat. Tia lunges with a desperate strike, her eyes narrowed in a final attempt to defeat the demonic beast. The monster easily counterattacks, pinning her down while mockingly declaring that any further resistance is completely futile. Displaying its overwhelming power, the demon scoffs at the elite students' titles and their supposed academic excellence. Tia is sent crashing into the dirt, her heart heavy with the realization of her own perceived helplessness. Despair consumes her as she lies defeated, questioning if her magical abilities are truly useless in battle. Sobbing uncontrollably, the young woman repeatedly whispers apologies to her comrades while the predator approaches her slowly. The demon looms over its prize, claiming her sacrifice is necessary for the fulfillment of its dark wish. A massive, jagged claw descends toward the cowering girl, threatening to end her life in one motion. She lets out a piercing, final scream of terror as death seems certain in the dark forest. An armored fist suddenly slams into the creature. The heavy blow connects with explosive impact. Sosuke delivers a decisive and bone-shattering strike. He stands protectively over the trembling Tia while the massive monster is driven back by his intervention. Crushing force ripples through the demon's body. It is launched backward with immense momentum. The monster stares in wide-eyed disbelief, unable to comprehend how a human possesses such overwhelming and divine strength. The beast crashes violently through the dark trees. Sosuke takes a deliberate step forward, calling out to the monster with a voice filled with unwavering authority. His comical mask begins to crack from the sheer intensity of his aura as he finally snaps. Tia gazes up at her savior in absolute shock, her breath catching as she realizes his hidden nature. The monster coughs up dark fluid as Sosuke's devastating power finally begins to take its brutal toll. Sosuke stands silhouetted in a menacing aura, while Tia stares in utter disbelief at his overwhelming physical might. He continues his slow, deliberate advance as the creature questions the true nature of his impossible strength. Coolly, he admits he intended a lethal blow, but didn't expect the monster to be so durable. Enraged by the human's calm arrogance, the beast's glowing eyes flare with an intense and murderous bloodlust. He delivers a heavy kick to the demon's head, warning it not to underestimate a former legendary hero. Standing tall with his back turned, he leaves Tia trembling in the shadow of his sudden crushing dominance. Moving with blinding speed, he launches himself into another high-stakes exchange to finish the demonic predator off. A flurry of strikes rains down on the monster as Sosuke utilizes his mastered body enhancement techniques perfectly. He lunges forward to deliver a finishing blow, while the air around them crackles with raw, unbridled energy. Tia's eyes reflect the chaotic violence of the battle, her mind unable to process such godlike combat speed. With the threat seemingly neutralized, he walks away calmly, while the monster collapses into the blood-stained earth. His mask shatters as Tia whispers in awe, while Sosuke demands the location of their missing allies. Responding with violence, he delivers a brutal kick that sends the monster's head snapping back in pain. He stands firmly atop the defeated beast, while Tia watches the veteran warrior's cold and efficient movements. The creature reveals that the mantis blood acted as a subconscious lure to lead them into this trap. Laughing mockingly, the monster remains arrogant even while pinned under the human's terrifying and crushing physical power. Tia sits among the magical debris, her expression a mix of relief and confusion at the unfolding events. Clutching his head as aura steams from his body, Sosuke urgently asks if Tia is able to stand. Looking pale and drained, Tia confirms she can still move, while magical energy slowly stabilizes around her. Sosuke stands silently as steam rises from his body, deciding not to share the secrets of his past life. He realized he missed his chance to interrogate the demon regarding the specific location of his missing allies. Scratching his head, he laments that his dulled senses prevent him from pinpointing their exact and current coordinates. Tia looks up with newfound resolve, assuring her mysterious savior that she is ready to continue the mission. She concentrates her magical power, revealing that she possesses the ability to sense their companion's lingering spiritual energy. Sosuke thanks her for the assistance, urging her to hurry so they can rescue Takatsuki and Mitsuki together. Overwhelmed by his kindness, the young mage gazes at him with eyes that sparkle with deep, heartfelt admiration. She thanks him softly, while her thoughts immediately drift back to the safety of her missing friend, Mitsuki. Suddenly, she asks for his real name, refusing to call him by a clearly fake and ridiculous festival pseudonym. Tia aggressively pulls on his clothes, declaring it a generational shame to not know her true savior's identity. A mysterious paper talisman suddenly appears, fluttering softly through the dark and quiet air of the dense forest. Sosuke catches the strange object, his expression turning serious as he wonders about its sudden and unexpected appearance. Tia watches the paper intently, her sharp eyes detecting the faint traces of a familiar and powerful magic. They identify the item as a Shiki talisman, a tool used for the sophisticated and remote manipulation of others. Tia further explains that this magic tool allows a master to control a target from an extreme physical distance. Sosuke asks for clarification, his mind racing as he processes the dark implications of this discovery on Earth. A heavy silence falls between them as Tia realizes the true nature of the threat they are currently facing. She solemnly concludes that the demonic beast was merely a puppet being controlled by a much greater hidden mastermind. The secret war for the city's survival shifts into its next phase as the heroes regroup under the moon. Deep in the darkness, a gargantuan beast looms over its fallen subordinate while letting out a low, menacing growl. Mitsuki gasps for breath while brandishing her rapiers against the overwhelming and menacing demonic threat. A blur of motion fills the air as the warriors struggle to keep up with the beast's speed. Brutal impacts send both Mitsuki and Koji flying backward, their bodies battered by the monster's physical power. The massive demon lunges forward with predatory grace, leaving the students scrambling to find a defensive opening. Frantic with worry, Mitsuki screams out to her comrade as the monster lets out a chilling, sadistic cackle. The two mages stand their ground before the towering silhouette of the darkness that threatens the city. Gritting her teeth, Mitsuki admits her lack of preparation for an enemy of such unprecedented and terrifying magnitude. Koji wipes blood from his face, his eyes filled with a desperate intensity as he remembers his mentor's teachings. Stepping forward, Koji offers himself as a decoy and urgently orders his partner to retreat to safety immediately. Mitsuki refuses to abandon her friend. charging back into the fray despite the monster's looming and nightmarish presence. A sudden flash of movement cuts through the forest as a new force enters the chaotic battlefield. The air screams as a powerful strike connects, generating a massive shockwave that levels the surrounding trees. Koji reaches out in desperation, shouting for Mitsuki to wait as a devastating explosion of energy erupts nearby. Like a bolt of lightning, the masked Sosuke sprints past his startled allies toward the heart of danger. He launches himself forward with divine momentum, his body a blur of absolute and focused lethal intent. Beneath the cracked mask, Sosuke's gaze remains cold and unwavering as he prepares his final decisive counterattack. A world-shaking blow lands squarely on the beast, shattering the quiet night with the sound of total destruction. The stress of his immense magical output causes the festival mask to fracture further into jagged pieces. He delivers a crushing punch that sends the demon spiraling into oblivion, while simultaneously catching the falling Mitsuki. The monster is utterly obliterated into smoke while Sosuke stands triumphant, holding his rescued comrade in the silence. Mitsuki screams in absolute disbelief as she witnesses the aftermath of Sosuke's crushing and singular strike. Staring at his smoking fist, Sosuke stands stoically while his companion remains frozen in a state of shock. Although Koji shouts in pure awe, declaring that his sensei's overwhelming power is truly and utterly amazing. Consequently, the young warrior celebrates the victory, while Tia watches the masked man with growing suspicion. Recovering from the chaos, Tia gently checks on a visibly dazed and exhausted Mitsuki. Sosuke commends their effort from the shadows, acknowledging that they actually managed to survive the encounter. Suddenly, the rest of the elite squad arrives as Tsuchimura-sensei officially declares the mission complete. The instructor praises Sosuke for his incredible contribution, confirming that the rumors of his strength were true. Yet under their intense gazes, Sosuke breaks into a cold sweat while desperately trying to maintain his disguise. He suddenly bolts away at full speed, shouting about his early morning shift at the supermarket. Meanwhile, Mitsuki fumes with frustration over the mysterious man's behavior, while the others watch him disappear. Once safe, Sosuke removes his mask and breathes a sigh of relief, narrowly avoiding discovery. Later, Tia stands alone in the quiet hallways of the academy, deep in personal reflection. Her expression hardens with determination as she contemplates the mysterious helper's true and hidden identity. Moving to the formal debriefing, she presents her detailed report on the night's dangerous demonic activities. The squad gathers in a lavish room while Tsuchimura-sensei commends them for slaying 7 monsters. She smiles warmly at her students, expressing genuine pride in their growth as capable professional sorcerers. However, Tia clarifies that their survival was entirely due to the intervention of the masked Taro. Koji eagerly adds that the helper saw through the mimicry and struck first with absolute precision. Finally, Mitsuki rants from her bed, still irritated that the demon had the audacity to try and deceive them. Mitsuki angrily defends Tia's floral scent, accusing Sosuke of being incredibly rude to a young lady. Ryoya questions Sosuke's limited magical repertoire, noting his apparent inability to use spells beyond basic body reinforcement. Kazumi remains silent, her stoic expression hiding a complex whirlwind of emotions regarding her childhood friend's return. Tsuchimura-sensei acknowledges the report, deciding to personally thank the mysterious helper for his vital assistance later. Later that day, Kazumi stands outside the Sato residence, whispering an apology before entering the traditional house. Bowing deeply upon meeting Sosuke, she apologizes for her sudden and unannounced intrusion into his private living space. While sitting on the tatami, she admits she came because there was something she urgently needed to ask. Sosuke is stunned, realizing this is the first time Kazumi has entered his room since their early childhood. After noticing his stiff movements, she asks if he is alright while he blames lingering muscle pain. Kazumi solemnly points out that the real cause is definitely his exhausting battle against the demons yesterday evening. A wave of pure shock hits Sosuke as he realizes his carefully constructed secret identity has been compromised. Following his frantic inquiry, she simply confirms that she knew his true identity from the very beginning. Facepalming in despair, he laments that his entire cover was completely and utterly exposed since the start. Kazumi expresses her genuine surprise that her long-missing childhood friend returned to Earth as a powerful master mage. Furthermore, she reveals her true lineage as a Shikigami, tasked with the sacred duty of managing local spirit veins. Sosuke honestly admits he was entirely ignorant of Earth's hidden magical society until his very recent return. Regarding his silence, he explains he assumed she wanted her own secret lifestyle to remain completely hidden. When questioned about his ridiculous disguise, he awkwardly apologizes for his behavior while she listens with rapt attention. He confesses that his strange persona was just a desperate, spur-of-the-moment lie to avoid her recognition. Kazumi looks at him with a lingering, skeptical gaze as the weight of their shared secrets fills the room. Kazumi demands to know where Sosuke was and what he was doing for those 4 long years. She then asks about his history with magic, while Sosuke hesitates to reveal the secret truth. Sosuke recalls being summoned as a boy and desperately begged to defeat a dark demon king. He remembers being worshipped as a legendary hero amidst the thunderous cheers of a grateful world. However, the memories of being mocked by Earth's police and failing job interviews resurface painfully. He wonders if a fellow sorcerer like Kazumi could finally understand his unique and inexplicable experiences. Staring into her eyes, he decides to trust his childhood friend with his most protected secret. He believes that Kazumi specifically will believe his incredible story without any cruel or mocking judgment. Taking a deep and heavy breath, the former hero prepares for a long overdue and life-changing confession. Sosuke officially agrees to tell her everything, looking directly at Kazumi with a firm, unwavering gaze. Kazumi reacts with genuine shock, her eyes widening as she desperately asks if he is actually serious. She then expresses her deep relief, confessing that she had been constantly worried about him for years. Seeing her genuine concern, Sosuke offers a sincere apology for causing her such immense and prolonged distress. Finally, he explicitly reveals that he spent his missing years living in an entirely different magical world. Sosuke further explains that he became a celebrated hero in that realm, while Kazumi listens in silence. He details his summoning by a princess and the grueling, life-altering training he endured under a master. Meanwhile, Kazumi remains stoic as the light of the setting sun fades outside the Sato residence. Sosuke boasts about defeating the Demon King and how his face was recorded in otherworld textbooks. He mentions appearing in picture books before noticing his friend's increasingly strange and silent emotional state. Sensing her sudden and intense distress, Sosuke urgently asks Kazumi what is wrong as she begins trembling. Sosuke attempts to explain his journey, but Kazumi interrupts with a sharp and emotional outburst. She shouts that she didn't come to hear such nonsense, while Sosuke stares back in disbelief. Consequently, he asks what happened for her to react so suddenly and violently to his confession. Kazumi questions why he persists in lying to her, her voice trembling with deep-seated betrayal. Both are caught in a moment of tense silence as their vastly different perceptions of reality clash. Sosuke begs her to wait, desperately trying to justify his 4.5-year disappearance as a true hero. She reminds him of the many loved ones who suffered constant worry while he was gone. Looking away, Kazumi admits that she was also profoundly hurt by his long and mysterious absence. Furthermore, she reveals her frantic efforts to find him using every magical resource at her disposal. With tears streaming down her face, she describes the agonizing fear that consumed her every single day. Kazumi berates his selfishness and accuses him of using stories to cover up his past mistakes. Meanwhile, Sosuke recalls his return to Earth, where his family and neighbors welcomed him with relief. Seeing her tears, he realizes the immense amount of emotional pain his sudden departure truly caused. He acknowledges that while he was a savior elsewhere, here he was merely a thoughtless runaway. Clenching his fist in regret, he admits he never fully considered the heavy burden others carried. Sosuke validates her feelings, though Kazumi counters that his return was the only thing that mattered. Regardless, she insists that she cannot simply accept his current claims about parallel worlds as truth. She expresses her disappointment that he would try to deceive her now after they finally reunited. Sosuke suddenly erupts with a fierce shout, swearing that his divine summoning was an absolute reality. He attempts to relate it to her magic, but she flatly denies that humans can be summoned. Kazumi flatly denies parallel worlds, claiming human summoning is a magical impossibility. She asserts that this knowledge is basic common sense for any trained sorcerer. Sosuke reacts with pure bewilderment, struggling to reconcile his actual experiences with her facts. He realizes that Earth and Digriffia operate under completely different sets of universal laws. Grimacing, he fears that his true story will never be accepted as reality here. He clutches his head in total frustration, unsure of how to bridge this divide. Kazumi watches him with concern as he abruptly turns away from their difficult conversation. Eventually, he apologizes and begs her to simply forget everything he previously confessed tonight. He tries to dismiss his 4-year absence as a simple, reasonless runaway act. Looking intense, he pleads for her to accept this lie for both their sakes. Kazumi falters, her voice reflecting a mix of deep confusion and growing emotional pain. She accuses him of being incredibly disrespectful to everyone who spent years worrying. Guilt washes over Sosuke's face as her harsh words hit their target perfectly. Although he claims his confession was born from care, she refuses to accept his retraction. She demands he stop joking around and finally share the real problems he's facing. Kazumi desperately offers her support, but Sosuke coldly rejects her help with a sigh. He explains his inability to fit into Earth society is strictly his own burden. He firmly tells her that his personal struggles have absolutely nothing to do with her. Kazumi stares in heart-wrenching shock at his cruel and dismissive words. The tension reaches a breaking point as Kazumi's eyes reveal her absolute devastation. Sosuke attempts to apologize, but Kazumi coldly admits they are practically strangers now. She claims her past concerns were for a person who no longer exists. Sosuke shouts in desperation, begging her to wait as his emotions boil over. Kazumi notes his silence, confirms he has no intention of telling the truth. She abruptly turns and leaves the room, ignoring Sosuke's frantic calls. Catching up in the hallway, Kazumi questions the unnatural secrecy of his disappearance. She wonders if something truly sinister occurred during his 4 missing years. Kazumi hesitatingly asks if he committed some unspeakable crime that he cannot reveal. Sosuke stares in stunned silence, realizing how deep her suspicion and doubt run. She explains she only wanted to believe he had a justifiable reason for leaving. He struggles to find the right words to describe his impossible fantasy experiences. Kazumi's voice drops as she asks again if he did something evil while away. Sosuke erupts, screaming that he desperately wanted to return to his family and her. Kazumi begins to cry, the emotional weight of their reunion finally breaking her. He grabs her shoulders, fiercely asserting that he was summoned to another world. Kazumi winces in pain, begging him to let go as his intensity becomes frightening. Sosuke realizes that to her, his ultimate truth sounds like a pathetic, delusional lie. A crushing silence descends between the childhood friends as their bond finally snaps. Kazumi tearfully decides that they should never see each other again after today. She walks out of the house, leaving Sosuke standing alone in his despair. Kazumi pauses at the door, mentioning she forgot to tell Sosuke one last important thing. He looks back with a weary and hardened expression, wondering what she wants to say now. She reveals that the squad is departing tonight for a final mission to eliminate a large mountain demon. Coldly, she informs him that the Magic Academy has strictly forbidden his further participation in the mission. Sosuke recoils in absolute shock, his eyes wide as he processes the sudden and total rejection. She asserts that the students are strong enough alone, claiming Tsuchimura-sensei made the final decision. Following her cold dismissal, she bids him farewell and walks out into the pouring night rain. Kazumi wanders through the deserted, rain-slicked streets as the heavy downpour masks her internal emotional turmoil. The relentless rain drenches her uniform, while she continues her solitary trek through the dark city landscape. Tears finally overflow as she hides her face, calling him a fool while weeping under the storm. Inside his quiet room, Sosuke leans against the window, gritting his teeth in self-loathing and defeat. He bitterly wonders who would ever believe such an impossible tale without facing the truth directly. Overwhelmed by his failure to connect with her, he collapses onto his bed in deep despair, staring blankly at the mattress. He wallows in the agonizing regret of their broken childhood bond. He laments that Kazumi was the only person he truly and desperately wanted to believe his impossible fantasy tale. Consequently, the heavy rain pounds against the glass, drenching the silent town in a cold, midnight gloom. Much later, he finally stirs from a restless sleep, feeling the physical and mental exhaustion of the day. He slowly blinks his eyes open, his gaze falling upon the outdated flip phone lying nearby. Sitting up abruptly, he realizes he slept through the evening, and it is already past midnight. Suddenly, the phone begins to vibrate with an urgent incoming call from his bubbly coworker, Miko. Sosuke is haunted by the image of Miko's bright smile as he wallows in his room. Suddenly, his outdated flip phone rings in the dead of night, startling him into action. An unfamiliar and mocking male voice answers the call, catching Sosuke completely off guard. Sitting up on his bed, he listens intently to the mysterious person using Miko's phone. The caller mockingly asks if he ignored the caller ID while rain pounds against the glass. Sosuke erupts in anger, fiercely defending Miko's pure character against the stranger's foul language. The conversation turns sinister as the intruder continues to speak with an ominous and wicked tone. Losing patience with the prank, he threatens to hang up until the stranger commands him to stay. A chilling silence follows as the voice mockingly addresses Sosuke as a legendary hero. Darkness falls over his face as he realizes his secret past has been unexpectedly exposed. The stranger urges him to listen carefully because their limited time is rapidly running out. He warns that the mages currently on the mountain are facing a non-demon threat. Glaring into the void, Sosuke demands the identity of the person on the other line. The caller cryptically declares his debt to his current vessel is finally paid and hangs up. Sosuke shouts for them to wait, but the mysterious connection is abruptly and permanently severed. Meanwhile, a violent lightning storm rages over the peaks of the demon-infested mountain. Tsuchimura-sensei leads her elite squad toward the summit to complete their final objective. Tia remains focused and silent, her eyes shadowed by a growing sense of dread and unease. Stats reveal Tsuchimura is a level 66 master specialized in devastating earth sorcery. Beside her stands Prince Ryoya, capable of summoning a holy sword and unleashing thunderous lightning magic. Level 32, Koji Takatsuki, an elite second-class mage, prepares for the mission with absolute focus. Alongside him, Mitsuki readies her rapid-fire sword techniques while maintaining her high-energy combat stance. Tia Vermilion focuses her significant sealing and barrier magic to support the squad from the rear. Kozumi Shikigami, a level 37 summoner, remains silent as she mentally prepares her divine beasts. The group officially departs together after confirming their party formation for the final dangerous mission. Noticing her distress, Mitsuki asks Kozumi if anything happened during their break before the battle. She points out that Kozumi has looked unusually pale since returning from Sosuke's traditional residence. Kozumi apologizes for her distraction, her mind still haunted by her friend's impossible and delusional claims. Mitsuki remains skeptical, privately thinking that Kozumi's explanation lacks any real or convincing emotional weight. Meanwhile, the squad begins placing magical talismans on the trees to secure the mountain's perimeter. Koji confirms the talisman's position, while his teammates prepare the surrounding terrain for the ritual. Tia explains that these specific wards will keep ordinary civilians away from the impending supernatural struggle. Mitsuki questions why her companions look so grim, wondering if Sosuke's absence is truly affecting them. Ryoya steps in to confidently reassure Mitsuki, promising to personally safeguard her throughout the entire combat. Flustered, Mitsuki aggressively slaps her own cheeks to regain her focus and fighting spirit. She commands the team to stay alert as they finish the final preparations for the confrontation. Koji narrows his eyes, his senses heightened as he monitors the dark woods for any movement. Ryoya acknowledges the command, while the heavy atmosphere of the summit begins to press down. Tsuchimura-sensei carefully applies the last warding seal, her movements practiced and filled with veteran grace. Thunder rumbles overhead as the elite squad finally reaches the peak of the demon-infested mountain. Tia attempts to detect the hidden enemy while the group awaits her signal. She finds it highly suspicious that she cannot pinpoint its exact magical location. Concentrating her mana, she narrows her gaze to search for any hidden distortions. Her eyes shimmer with power as she detects a sudden surge from beneath. Reacting instantly, she screams for everyone to jump back away from the danger. A colossal shadowed beast erupts violently from the rocky ground in a blast. The gargantuan lizard-like monster towers over the shocked young mages with menace. The team reels at the creature's massive size, while Ryoya laughs excitedly. Drawing his radiant holy blade, Ryoya prepares to engage the massive reptilian foe. Kazumi orders everyone to stand back while she gathers her formidable spiritual energy. She manifests a complex magic circle on the ground to initiate a summoning. The divine beast Jin, a massive white wolf, emerges from the glowing light. Requesting his assistance, she watches as Jin steps forward to protect his master. The predatory lizard and the celestial wolf face off in a tense standoff. With a ferocious snarl, Jin lunges forward to strike at the dark monster. Kazumi remains vigilant, her eyes following every movement of the high-stakes battle. The two titans collide with world-shaking force, sparks flying from their impact. Her comrades stare in disbelief at the sheer power of Kazumi's strongest summon. Jin senses something odd about the enemy's movements during their heated physical exchange. The lizard's heavy tail smashes into the earth, shattering the ground beneath them. Kazumi is shocked as she realizes her attack's power was completely suppressed. Mitsuki lunges forward, aiming a decisive blow at the stationary beast. The lizard stares back coldly as it prepares for the next assault. A violent counterattack sends the mages flying backward in total disarray. The creature looms through the dust, tracking its prey's scattered movements. Lightning crackles as Ryoya channels magic through his blade for a gambit. He unleashes strikes, the air shimmering with raw holy power. The beast maintains impossible speed, dodging the barrage despite its bulk. Tsuchimura leaps high, gathering concentrated spiritual energy in his palm. He releases a devastating blast of pure force with a roar. A massive explosion erupts, engulfing the battlefield in blinding light. Ryoya and Tsuchimura regroup, hardening their resolve for a coordinated strike. Glowing eyes pierce the smoke with terrifying and sinister intensity. The lizard emerges unscathed, showing durability beyond all expectation. Mitsuki and Kazumi realize their magic failed to penetrate the shell. Tsuchimura acknowledges that this adversary is stronger than any previous foe. Ryoya smirks, dismissing his failed strikes as a mere warm-up. His gaze sharpens as he decides it is time to use his sword. Kazumi watches anxiously, sensing the escalating pressure as the situation turns dire. Tia considers her sealing techniques to stop this invincible beast. Tia senses their impending defeat as the enemy's overwhelming power begins to crush their collective fighting spirit. Takatsuki gently pats her head, signaling a shift in the battle's momentum as she finally steps forward. The veteran instructor calmly observes the monster's unnaturally tough hide while preparing her own devastating magical technique. Sensing the shift in power, the students watch as their mentor prepares to handle the situation personally. Exhaling smoke, she sternly orders the young mages to retreat before they get caught in her crossfire. She kneels to touch the ground, focusing her immense magical reserves for a high-level terrain manipulation spell. A colossal pillar of energy surges upward, nearly dwarfing the massive beast as the teacher engages in earnest. The sheer force of the impact launches the gargantuan lizard high into the air like a discarded toy. Conjuring multiple massive stone drills in the sky, she prepares to rain down a finishing blow from above. The magical projectiles converge on the falling beast, creating a lethal vortex of spinning earth and crushing weight. A thunderous explosion rocks the mountainside as the drills collide with the creature's back in midair. Kazumi and Jin stare in absolute awe at the destructive capability of a truly elite, high-ranking mage. Driven deep into the crust, the lizard is pinned down by the weight of the reinforced stone drills. A massive crater is carved into the beast's back, revealing the severe damage inflicted by the instructor's power. Kazumi gasps in horror as the deep lacerations begin to sizzle and knit back together instantaneously. The monster lets out a bone-chilling roar, standing up completely recovered as its regeneration finishes the job. Mitsuki screams in frustration, questioning how they can possibly kill a monster with such insane self-healing capabilities. Takatsuki remains unbothered, calmly telling the group to keep their heads as she devises a new strategy. She promises to strip the armor once more, demanding that everyone strikes simultaneously with their strongest elemental magic. Reinvigorated, the team realizes their previous attacks were effective, necessitating a final, perfectly timed coordinated strike. Tia's eyes widen with a mix of shock and determination as the combat intensifies. Tsuchimura-sensei commands the team to destroy the beast's scales by coordinating their maximum firepower. Gritting her teeth, the teacher slams her hands into the earth to stabilize the area. The entire squad prepares their ultimate magical techniques to deliver a single, crushing blow. Sensing the danger, the monster lashes out with its grotesque and incredibly long tongue. A flash of realization crosses the instructor's face as she senses the impending catastrophe. She screams a final, desperate warning for her beloved students to fall back immediately. Without warning, the demonic lizard unleashes a devastating beam of energy from its maw. The massive blast rips through the terrain, catching the veteran mage in its path. Wrapped in the creature's tight grip, the teacher is pulled towards certain and horrific doom. The force of the battle scatters the young mages across the broken and ruined peak. The monster's mouth opens wide, preparing to consume the pillar of their magical defense. A sickening crunch reverberates through the storm as the creature's jaws snap shut violently. Her lit cigarette falls through the dark air, a silent symbol of her sudden fall. Horrified, the students watch in absolute silence as their world is shattered in seconds. The demon swallows its prey, whole, while a mysterious, sinister figure watches with a grin. Blood drips from the beast's maw as it looms over the survivors in the rain. A whisper of pure disbelief echoes through the night as the reality finally sinks in. The memory of their teacher's calm strength haunts the students amidst their overwhelming grief. Shouting her name into the storm, the broken team mourns their fallen mentor's sacrifice. Heavy rain drenching the mountain peaks as the situation reaches a desperate and tragic turning point. Kazumi's heart breaks as she sobs uncontrollably, her eyes reflecting the absolute horror of their mentor's demise. Ryoya stands frozen in a state of pure shock, sweat dripping down his face amidst the freezing downpour. Tia closes her eyes and weeps, the weight of their devastating loss pressing down on her young soul. Gritting his teeth in a fit of uncontrollable rage, Koji vows to avenge their teacher at any cost. The mages regroup for a desperate counterattack, unleashing their combined magical might against the invincible demonic lizard. Gasps of exhaustion escape Kazumi's lips as she struggles to maintain her concentration through the blinding rain. Summoning her last reserves of strength, she orders Jin to launch a fierce and direct frontal assault. The celestial wolf and the dark beast collide with world-shaking force, generating a massive explosion of energy. Kazumi pleads for her companion to hold the line, her magical aura swirling violently in the darkness. Memories of their teacher's guidance fuel their resolve as the students prepare for one final, desperate stand. The massive monster swings its lethal tail with blinding speed, forcing Mitsuki into a narrow and dangerous dodge. Channeling her grief into her blade, a swirling vortex of wind magic surrounds Mitsuki's ready rapier. Tears stream down her face while she refocuses her entire being on the monster, refusing to be defeated. Moving like a blur of lethal intent, she lunges forward to deliver a high-speed strike to the beast. A sudden flash of realization pierces through the chaos as the mages detect a fatal shift in momentum. Without warning, a colossal, jagged claw descends from the heavens to crush the defiant young swordsman. Mitsuki screams in pure terror as the distance between her and the predator vanishes in an instant. The earth shatters into countless fragments as the monster's crushing blow obliterates everything in its path. Debris flies through the air, while the sheer force of the impact leaves the battlefield in absolute ruin. Mitsuki pours her entire soul into a final, desperate rapier strike against the monster. Her blade connects with an ear-splitting crack, generating a shockwave that rocks the mountain summit. Despite her effort, the beast's colossal and armored claw looms over her tiny frame with lethal intent. Nearby, Koji's eyes widen in absolute terror as he realizes the devastating scale of the enemy's counterattack. The lizard-like demon gathers a massive concentration of dark mana within its wide-open maw. A colossal explosion of energy erupts, engulfing the battlefield and launching Mitsuki into the air. Koji is violently thrown backward by the sheer force of the blast as chaos reigns supreme. Desperate to save his comrade, the young mage catches the wounded Mitsuki amidst the debris and rain. Sweating from the overwhelming pressure, Kazumi realizes the enemy possesses flawless defensive and offensive capabilities. She stares at the monster with trembling resolve, knowing their team must somehow find a way to win. The gargantuan predator towers over the small mages, its silhouette casting a long and terrifying shadow. Without warning, the beast lunges forward with predatory speed, its mouth open to finish them off. Jin, the divine white wolf, snarls a warning to his masters while stepping protectively in front of them. Suddenly, a mysterious and elegant woman in a long dress manifests on the battlefield, shocking Kazumi. She warns the group about the extreme danger, while cryptically mentioning the human nature of their foe. Wide-eyed with confusion, Kazumi struggles to process the sudden appearance of this powerful and unexpected stranger. The newcomer looks away with a weary expression as the heavy rain continues to drench the mountain. Tia quickly readies her magical talismans, preparing to unleash a high-level binding ritual to stop the beast. A flurry of glowing seals streaks through the air, targeting the monster's massive and destructive claw. Kazumi watches in dazed silence as the tide of battle shifts under the stranger's authoritative and mystical presence. A massive demonic claw slams into the muddy earth with bone-shattering force. Kazumi's eyes widen in desperation as she screams for her divine beast to strike. Responding instantly, the white wolf Jin lunges through the air with predatory grace. The celestial wolf sinks its fangs into the monster's throat while blood sprays across the peak. Howling in agony, the creature whirls violently in an attempt to shake off its persistent attacker. A thunderous impact rocks the summit as the beast crashes against the jagged rocks below. To their absolute horror, the creature's deep wounds begin to knit back together almost instantly. Glowing with a malevolent light, the monster's eyes reflect a primal and unyielding fury. Kazumi gasps for breath, her magical energy rapidly depleting as the battle drags on. Amidst the heavy downpour, she frantically checks on her fallen comrades while the shadow looms. The mages realize with dread that this enemy possesses an unnatural level of regenerative power. Koji asserts that they must deliver a blow far exceeding the speed of its self-healing. Mitsuki readies her rapier once more, her expression a mix of exhaustion and fierce defiance. Standing tall amidst the crackling lightning, the mysterious woman observes the children's desperate struggle. Ryoya drops to one knee and begins a complex ritual to manifest a legendary power. He begs his teammates to buy him just a few more minutes to complete the summoning. The legend of the Holy Sword is revealed, requiring immense mana and a vulnerable period. Each member of the squad steels their resolve for one final, life-risking defensive maneuver. The group stands firm on the rain-slicked slope as the behemoth prepares its next charge. Dark fluid leaks from the monster's snarling maw as it locks onto its remaining prey. A close-up reveals an eye wide with terror as the situation on the mountain turns catastrophic. Fearing the worst, a desperate warning to escape echoes across the rain-drenched battlefield. A colossal tail slams into a defensive wall, sending shockwaves that threaten to level everything. Ryoya grits his teeth in agonizing pain, struggling to maintain his footing against the beast. Mitsuki braces herself with a fierce expression, refusing to let her spirit break under the pressure. The monstrous predator glares back with cold, reptilian eyes that promise only total destruction. A massive shockwave ripples through the air, dwarfing every previous attack they have faced so far. Tia stares in absolute disbelief as she realizes the scale of the enemy's power. Ryoya shouts for her to leave him behind and save herself from the encroaching darkness. Refusing to abandon her friend, Tia summons every drop of mana to manifest a giant barrier. An immense crystalline wall erupts from the earth, acting as a final line of desperate defense. The beast delivers a bone-shattering strike against the crystal, causing the very air to scream. Tia remains stunned by the magnitude of the barrier, knowing it far exceeds her normal limits. Under the monster's physical weight, the seemingly indestructible magical wall begins to crack. Her eyes widen in pure horror as she watches the fracture lines spread across her protection. Pushing beyond her capacity, Tia tries to stabilize the failing structure with her bare hands. The massive barrier shudders and groans as it reaches the absolute limit of its structural integrity. Koji lunges through the pouring rain, his voice a frantic cry as he races toward the disaster. Despair takes hold as the crystalline defense finally shatters into countless shards under the beast's blow. A calm voice cuts through the chaos, commending her effort while telling her it is enough. Jin lunges forward, his sharp claws shattering the last remaining fragments of Tia's broken barrier. Crystal shards spray across the air as the beast's overwhelming and savage momentum continues forward. A massive shockwave ripples through the peak, leaving Kazumi staring in absolute and breathless horror. Standing on trembling legs, she realizes the situation has turned completely and utterly hopeless. Consequently, she screams her divine companion's name as the monster prepares a final finishing blow. Jin is violently slammed into the rocky earth, blood spraying from the force of the impact. Kazumi rushes to her fallen partner's side, desperately promising to heal his many critical wounds. Gritting her teeth, she realizes her magical reserves are almost entirely and dangerously depleted. She orders her friends to flee while choosing to stay behind with her suffering partner. Tears stream down her face as she whispers a final, heartbroken plea to her friend. The gargantuan lizard-like demon advances slowly, its heavy steps shaking the very mountain's foundation. Kazumi gazes up in pure terror as her remaining magical talismans flutter away uselessly. Nearby, Mitsuki stands paralyzed by the sheer, crushing pressure of the creature's murderous presence. Kneeling in the dirt, Kazumi clutches her blood-stained arm while mourning their seemingly inevitable defeat. The monster looms over the survivors, mockingly asserting that no further help is coming tonight. Suddenly, Koji steps forward with a fierce gaze, his eyes glowing with an unyielding resolve. Harnessing his remaining strength, he challenges the behemoth to face him in one final duel. The predator's single eye narrows, focusing its entire lethal intent on the defiant young mage. Koji launches into a suicidal charge, while Kazumi screams for him to retreat immediately. Lightning arcs through the stormy sky as Kazumi watches her friend's desperate and final gamble.